This is a retro review of the Bryston 4B-ST power amplifier. Today I'm looking at this Bryston 4B-ST power amp. This is a 2x 250 watt amplifier at 8 ohm. At 4 ohms it will give you 2x 400 watts. It contains two amplifier modules, each with its own power supply, and by bridging these two modules together you can turn this into a mono amplifier that will give you 800 watts of pure power. If we look at the front plate, there's just a few features. You have the power button, two LEDs and two little screws. The LEDs turn green when the amp is in operation mode, and they will turn red in case of overload or distortion. And at that point you are in serious danger of damaging your loudspeakers with this kind of power. The two screws you see here are input level controls, a kind of potentiometer. It has a limited range of control for the gain of the amplifier. The left control is for channel 1 and the other one is for channel 2. Now on the rear of the amp you will understand why they say channel 1 and channel 2 instead of left channel and right channel. And that is all there is to the front panel. At the rear it gets more interesting. Going from left to right we have the power connector. Next to that there is a ground lift switch. So you can use that if you have ground loops problems. And this is not the same as a cheater plug. The switch does not disconnect the chassis from the third prong on your power cord. That would not be safe. So it is connected between the chassis ground and the signal ground. Next to that we have the connectors for the loudspeaker cables. They take banana plugs, spades and bare wire. And as you can see, they don't mark these as left and right, but channel 1 and channel 2. Now the color code is red and black as usual. The reason they do this is because when you bridge the amp into mono, your connections should only be on channel 1. Then we have a mode switch for bridged operation, meaning mono, and what they call individual mode, meaning stereo. After that we have the channel 1 and 2 inputs for unbalanced RCA connectors. There is a switch to choose between balanced and unbalanced operation, and then there is something that I had never seen before, probably because I don't have much experience with studio gear. It looks like one connection, but it's actually two connections. There is a balanced XLR input, but it also takes 1/4 inch jacks at the same place. For my review I only used the RCA unbalanced input. Unfortunately, the footage of the system playing turned out to be unusable. But here are my thoughts on the Bryston 4B-ST. Oh, by the way, the ST does not stand for studio. It stands for Stuart Taylor, and he is the chief engineer at Bryston. Some more fun facts. Retail was around $2,300 in 1999, and this beast weighs a hefty 20 kilos. And for the 3 countries in this world that do not use the metric system, that is 44 pounds. So in order to understand what this amp was all about, I used multiple loudspeakers, cables and preamps. The combination with the relatively cheap Tannoy M2 was pretty nice. The M2 played probably as good as it ever will. This is probably not a combination you would choose for your home, considering the price of the 2 different devices, but a good amp will show you what your loudspeaker is capable of. The M2 is a very friendly loudspeaker, and the amount of detail it got from the Bryston made for a result that was very engaging and will never give you listening fatigue. Next up was the Dinaudio Audience 40. This is obviously a better loudspeaker as the Tannoy, so again we got lots of detail, but this time with more control. One thing that happened when playing at high levels was that the high frequencies started to rough up a little bit. Not sure if this was the Bryston or the huge amount of power for the little loudspeaker. The Dinaudio is rated at 150 watts at 4 ohm, and the Bryston has a minimum of 400 watts on tap for 4 ohms. So maybe it was a little bit too much. Then it was time for the Lin Ninka. This was again a step up. It is also a bigger loudspeaker. Now bigger is not necessarily better in this hobby, but in this case the sound became much more coherent and authoritative. And in this situation again there was the problem with the high frequencies becoming a little unpleasant when the volume was pushed. Another thing that stood out was that there was lots of bass, not boomy bass but good solid bass. But the thing that amazed me the most was the amount of detail this amp was able to dig out of the music. You can hear every little detail. If the music has it, the Bryston will share it with you. Another thing that I kept writing down in my notes was friendly lion. You could totally sense the amount of power from the amp, but it was not in an obnoxious way. It had grace and musicality, and when it needed to leap or growl, it would. And you felt the effortlessness from the amp in doing so. I did give it a short go on my 16 ohm 98 dB Audiphile broadband loudspeakers, but it was obvious that those are 2 completely different design philosophies and they did not match together. Also, I was afraid it could damage my loudspeakers. I don't believe I have ever had an amp in my house with so much power. I am more a tube or class A kind of listener. So to conclude, there was one thing I did not like, or probably 2 things, and I'm not sure if this was a fault of the amp. I already told you about the highs becoming a little bit too harsh for my taste, but also when you had music with short, loud, dynamic sounds, I mean like when you hit a drum with a drumstick for just one aggressive attack, it was too friendly. A trumpet that started with a loud attack, it just did not have the power that it should. But in all fairness, I think it is more that this 20-year-old amp may need some attention. It sounds a bit tired. I know Bryston does give you a 20-year warranty on their amps, but if I look at this Bryston, it has all the signs that it has been used in a studio or maybe on tour with a band. This thing is pretty beat up. Now it is built like a tank of course and made for those circumstances, but still, after 20 years of abuse it may need some attention. And at the very end of this review, before I will tell you that this is a wonderful amp, very musical and full of control, it is also but ugly. Looks don't make the sound and it is only opinion, but I had to say it. It is a bit of a shame though, because I am sure some people have looked over this amp because of its looks. And for me, the musicality of this amp is not reflected in the exterior design, and I think that is a shame. So I say once more, this is a wonderful amp. It gives you all the detail you could want, and it is very, very musical. So I hope you like this retro review of the Bryston 4B-ST. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.